Paul was always getting in trouble. Starting riots, they try to murder him. He's off to prison again. And eventually, sort of the fanfare around Paul kind of ebbs and flows. And what he says at one point is, everyone is gone, abandoned me, I'm on my own, except for Luke. Isn't that a great insight? Everyone else gives up, Luke's still there. Everyone went home, Luke's still there. Luke's going to the prison. Paul, how you doing? He's traveling with Paul. Let me say this. This will be very important. Many of you are very young. And you live in a culture where you're really encouraged to be the wrong thing. And that is to be in charge. And what I love about Luke is that he's humble. And he's a servant, and he's faithful. Let me tell you a secret. There are two kinds of people who rise up in the world, in history, in ministry. Those whom God puts his hand on, and he just calls them forth. And those who are humble, trustworthy servants and assistants to those whom God is rising up. Paul was a man that God literally just put his hand on. If you don't believe in election, Paul's story should convince you. He's going to murder Christians. Jesus comes down from heaven, blinds him, converts him, and tells him to go be a preacher. If anyone was elect, it would be Paul. He didn't even like Christians, let alone pastoring them. He preferred murdering them. And sometimes pastors still feel that way. Anyways, he was chosen to go preach to people that he hated about the love of Jesus for them. So he's a man whom God placed his hand on, God called forth, God rose up. And what Luke decided was, I'm not going to fight with Paul, argue with Paul. I'm not going to use Paul to pad my resume. I'm not going to try and be Paul 2.0. I'm not going to try and supersede Paul. I'm going to serve Paul. I'm going to help Paul. I'm going to be his traveling companion, his friend, his researcher, his helper, his personal physician. Luke was a doctor. And he's the one who faithfully served Paul. Some of you, God's going to call to be like Paul. Some of you, God's going to call, most of you, God's going to call to be like Luke. Just to come alongside and serve those who are serving others.